Hi everybody. In this video, I'm going to give you some hints on the average steps method, which to me is the most challenging yet important method to think about. So let's go ahead and take a look at the problem super quick. So average steps. So if nothing's been recorded, it'll just give us 0.0 for average, but if we've recorded some steps, like we took 9,000 this day and 5,000 the next day, then average steps will average them. 9,000 plus 5,000 divided by 2, because there were 2 days, gives us 7,000. If we keep going, we have another day with 13,000 steps, then the average will calculate 9,000 plus 5,000 plus 13,000 divided by 3, which would give me 9,000 steps. So, first let's think about averages. Suppose, for example, these are some of the scores in your class. If you wanted to find out the average score in your class, what information would you need? Take a minute and think about this. And pause the video. When you're ready to go again, just unpause the video. I'm ready to go and reveal the answer in 3, 2, 1. So what I said was, to get the average, you need to figure out the total of everyone's scores. Give me a minute. The total of everyone's scores and how many students there are. So you need to do a total: 92 plus 75 plus 83 plus 100 plus 65 plus 97, and then divide that by how many students there are. So that's divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's how to figure out an average. Now let's think a little further. How would you calculate the scores? Think code-wise. How might you calculate the scores? If you think you know the answer, I would pause the video and try to write out some pseudocode or hints. Do that now. I'm going to reveal the answer in 3, 2, 1. So one way to do this is, give me just a minute. There we go. Okay, so to calculate the scores, one way is to just add each of the scores to the total one at a time, and then divide this number by how many students there are. Here are some sample scores just for reference. So again, add each score to the total, and then divide by how many students there are. That's method 1. Method 2, or method B, you could put each of these scores into a whole list, and then loop through the list, adding each score to the total. Then divide this number by the size of the list, so just like that. There's another error you need to keep in mind, and that's the divide by 0 error. Think about it. When might I get a divide by 0 error? I'm going to do the answer in 3, 2, 1. So in this case, you would get a divide by 0 error if there are no scores or no students, really. So, because you're dividing by the number of students. Watch for divide by 0 errors when you are doing this problem, because when you are doing average steps method, it's going to be very similar to the example above, except that you're returning the number of average steps per day. Let's go over these methods in a little bit more detail. So first, I will start with method A. So in method A, we added each score to the total one at a time without a list. Maybe I'll just expand upon it. This is without a list. So if you're doing this without a list, you still add each score to the total one at a time and divide this number by how many students there are. If you use method A, you will need to first add some additional data fields. Remember what we needed in order to find the average? You might possibly need those as data fields. Another thing to keep in mind is the average will partially be calculated in one of your other methods. You may be able to use average steps to calculate the average, but you might not be able to calculate the whole average inside this method. Now, if you cannot calculate the average in the average steps method, where else might you calculate it? Think about this for a minute. I'll go over what I think in 3, 2, 1. So, what I think is you might possibly calculate the average as you are adding steps to your daily routine. So you can take that as a possible hint on how to do the problem. So once again, one of the other methods, not average steps, as in one of these methods, either the constructor, add daily steps, active days, or average steps, will help you calculate the average number of steps. And some of it will be calculated in average steps, but not all of it. Let's now go on to method B. Method B is, I'll erase this, there we go. Method B is to put each of these scores into a list. Then you loop through the list, adding each score to the total. Then divide this number by the size of the list, because the size of the list is how many scores there are. If you decide to use method B with a list or an array list, you will need to add some additional data fields just like the other method. And in this method, you can actually completely calculate the average inside average steps. You do not need to use another method to calculate the average. Well, those are my hints for the average steps method. Click the other videos to see hints for the other methods, or if you want to know the answers to this problem. Thank you.